All right, everybody, we have, I was going to say the man. That's not accurate, although it's 2025, so who knows. But we have the woman, the myth, the legend, Sony here, um, back by popular demand, quite literally. The amount of people, I don't know when you're watching this, maybe 2035, who knows when you're on here watching the replay right now. But um, we had a lot of people on my stories asking for Sony. They wanted to meet the woman behind the camera. So what I figured I would do is bring her on here to just do some Q&A. So Sony was in the program roughly a year ago, is when she started, give or take, and took her a couple of months, and she started just to be in this incredible
We're
spot.
back.
So I won't
Keep
give,
going.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I won't give too much of the story away. I'll let her do that. Um, but as long as she can hear me, say yes if you can hear me. What I'm gonna do, everybody, is I'm just gonna basically direct her to give us the background on like what she was feeling before everything that was going on in her life, because she's got a couple of things that are health challenges and where she was at, where she is now, and all the updates, and then a couple of the basics of what she did to get here, and then you guys can feel free to totally do Q&A. So um, that is her newborn, who is absolutely adorable beyond measure. Um, but yeah, I'll give her the floor. So, Sony, other than introducing us your beautiful baby boy, tell
Sorry,
us,
man. I just woke up from a nap.
yeah, no worries. Tell us a bit about where were you before you joined this coaching program? How are you feeling now? And kind of give us an update on your world. And what were a couple of the biggest things that you did or shifts that you made to get here? But have at her. It's all you. The mic's yours.
Yes. I was hoping he was going to stay asleep for this call, but you know how babies are. If you're a mom, it's like they just know. Like when the camera's on, when you're having to do stuff, and they're like, time to wake up. Anywho, yeah, I met Tyler when I was, I think, in my first, going into my second trimester, pregnant with this guy, and I knew something had to change, for me, for the baby. Um, it was kind of a miracle pregnancy because I had been sick for 6 years. In 2018, I had like just overnight gotten really sick, had kind of like a near death and just a lot of stuff. During the years since that incident, I got diagnosed with a lot of, chronic conditions, all the things that doctors say the prognosis is like, this is just your life, this is just your genetics, this is just, what you're going to have to deal with. And it was pretty grim, like my future. And I'm in the medical field, and so is my husband. And so we had, fortunately, access to a lot of the best, healthcare providers. And I kind of already knew, what I needed to do. But even with all the best like clinicians and, doing all the things, the diets, everything, I was just still really, really sick. And then that mentally kind of took a toll. And so, anyways, I had worked with different therapists because at that point, clinically dealing with whatever I needed to was one thing, but like the anxiety, with health anxiety, it got so extreme that I was not able to leave my bed. And I mean, I was just constantly in fight or flight. And it was just really, really, just there's no life. So, anyways, when I met Tyler, I think I remember one of our first calls. I was in my bed in the dark because I had really severe like sensory issues, including any light. So I think a lot of our calls, I was in sunglasses in the dark in my bed. I never moved from my bed. And my husband works long hours, and so it was always just me at home with the anxiety and just all of that. And met Tyler, and I was very skeptical because I'd watch his videos, and he would say all these things. I'm sure you guys are all in the same boat, like what? um but we had a great consult, and I just knew, just something in me knew that he would be able to kind of get me to the next phase of my healing, because at this point I had already gotten a lot of the clinical answers that I needed and manage what I needed to. But it was just like this, like, what do I do with my life? Like, if this is as good as I'm gonna get, medically speaking, right? I'm like, I want to like feel good every day, but I don't know how to do that because I always thought I can only feel good and be excited about life if I just felt better. But then, with how bad I felt and being told you're not going to get better, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have no life. But then I met Tyler and he's like, nope, that's not true. Um, so yeah, that's how bad I was. Never left the bed or anything. Within 2 weeks of talking to Tyler and being on these group calls, I think I shared on our group where I was eating in my dining room, which was huge for me because I have a safe spot with the safe chair that I always sat in, and I would always get sick and go back to bed. But within 2 weeks, I think I was eating in a different room, and able to actually finish a meal. And then starting from there, I started walking outside. I challenged myself to go like one house, I think, down the street. And I was like, oh my gosh, and I freaked out and I came back in. And by the next call, I think I was like running, I mean, going around the whole neighborhood because he was kind of like, if you can walk down one house, why not two houses? Why not three? And I was like, I don't know. I don't, because I feel like crap. But the idea started to open up in my brain, like, oh yeah, if I really can make it one house, what is stopping me to walk to the next house? And so anyway, now I'm like in the sunshine, all the blackout curtains are out of my bedroom. Since I've since had a whole friggin' baby, which even when you're super healthy, moms, this, it's very depleting and all that stuff, but I've been, doing well. But yeah, that's just a short kind of like where I was before I met Tyler and kind of how I'm doing now. But, I just, even this holiday season, I've traveled to two different states. I used to also have like severe flying anxiety because of like not having access to medical stuff if I needed and just, all the things like what if someone's sick and just a lot of anxiety. And we flew with the newborn, um, got to see family, and it's just been great. So I've just been, anyways, really busy living life. At one point in the call, or in our thing, I was like, Tyler, I don't think I need the group stuff anymore because I'm just too busy. Not that I didn't want to stop, but I was just like, I wake up and my days are full. There's purpose, there's meaning. I'm feeling great. And even when I'm not feeling great, that's the thing. Even when I'm having symptoms, it's not defining my entire day, and it's just not what it was before. And so it's just possible for anybody. If you guys even want to have a visual of how sick I was, you can go look at my Instagram just to look at pictures because I used to share my health journey on there, and then I stopped because again, I'm just so busy living life. And I also don't want to just consume myself with constantly reminding myself, like, with people that are sick and how sick I am and talking about my symptoms. Like, there's so many greater things to talk about now and do, but you guys can go on there and I can share my Instagram handle later. But yeah.
I love that. I want to ask one more question and just prompt you to talk a little bit about this too. A lot of the women here, some who aren't here, some who are, but then also just like a lot on my social media because it seems to be the thing everyone's coming to me now for. I don't even know how this whole thing works, but I'm attracting them. Tell us a little bit about your fear or feeling of inability to drive, and then what happened where you
Oh my
ended up
gosh.
driving because I remember I put it for everyone watching the replay, you can't see this, so I'm going to say it out loud. But I put somewhere in the chat that you drove,
Yes.
and when I saw this message, I was like, "Holy fucking crap!" Because I like just yeah, explain that piece because
Yeah.
you weren't even
I
driving,
mean,
and then just you drove there.
again, 6 years since I had driven. I mean, during that time I have driven, but it would always be to like my mom's apartment at the time that was like literally down the street, and the whole time I'd be so 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 scared and symptomatic, and then I always every time I've attempted it got stuck there, and then my husband had to come get me, and then we had to like drive the car back later. Like it was always a thing. So yeah, I think what was it, like within months, like within not even 3 months, I think, that I met Tyler, and just started kind of doing work with him. I drove and I did a fun drive. And I think I started going to Dunkin' and I got myself a fun drink, which again, that was huge too, because, with health anxiety, I was so freaked out about everything I ate. I reacted to everything I ate. And, but I went to not Starbucks, Dunkin', and got a coffee, drove back, and I enjoyed it. I was listening to music. I wasn't doing breathing or tapping or doing stuff I was just driving. And I mean, that's one of the things I love to do is just driving. And I drove. And so I would do that here and there. And as a matter of fact, within the last, anyway, I can't remember the timeline, but I got even a new car. Because one of the things Tyler like kind of challenged me was like, why like stop, like dream, not just dream big, but just kind of like don't limit yourself. And I've had this car that I really, really loved, but it was super old. And I got it, shortly before I got sick. So it basically sat in my garage for 6 years, to be honest. And then with the baby coming along, I was like, yeah, let's like think bigger and not just think like, well, I'm probably not gonna drive. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna drive and I'm gonna drive my baby around and like we need more space. And the next thing I know, I got a really great deal on a brand new car. It's so nice. Um, and so yeah, just I have such an ease. I don't drive regularly right now because I honestly don't really have anywhere to go and he's still so small. But it's just so great to have that freedom again. And just letting you know, I also worked with a lot of like hypnotherapists and a lot of different types of therapists that helped me. They try to do like exposure therapy, or they would say like, okay, let's get in your car for 5 minutes today and like drive around the driveway. And I used to try that, and honestly it just made me more scared. I don't know what it was. And then again, just the things that Tyler helped me discover, it was like there was no thought involved. It was just like, I want to drive. Let's go drive, you know?
I love that. So, what I'd love to do, if you're up for it, is ask you a couple of questions to get some pinpointed answers. And then I will let the women here just do a free for all question and answer and give you everyone here the microphone because it's your show, not mine. I'm just here to kind of facilitate it. My first question is, what do you think was different about me slash like this program slash the tool? Like, what do you think was different about all the things that we did together versus things you might have tried in the past that allowed you to cross the bridge to where you are now?
Yeah. Well, I've worked with really great therapists and doctors and, counselors and pastors, and they've all been, I think, great, great insight. I've always learned more about myself. I was able to identify, childhood traumas or why I behave the way that I do, and they've all been really helpful. The difference was though, is like with after those sessions are over, I would go back to just feeling really bad or nothing's really changed. I was still in bed. I was still, stuck in here. And I think with you, um, it was the action part. Like, let's just get to the point. It's almost like this. A good analogy that I can think of is like, a light switch. We know that when you turn it on or off, we know the light turns on and off. We don't have to look inside the the switch and be like, oh, this wire goes there to do that. Like you can. And I think sometimes it's helpful to understand the inner workings, aka your childhood traumas, and why we do the things that we do, and look into our diagnoses and understand why we feel the way that we feel. But at the end of the day, I just want the light on or off. And I think with Tyler, that's kind of what it was about. It was like, I just want to drive. I just want to wake up and feel excited about life and not be so scared, do the things that I know, I'm meant to do.
I love that. Um, and then another piece that I want to ask is like, um, there's so many like nuanced pieces that I put in this program slash that I teach you guys, and I keep putting up air quotes because I'm like, I don't even really like to take it as ego as mine because it's not mine. I've just learned from a variety of different people that I thought were useful. So, out of all the things you learned during the time together, what do you think are like one or two actionable or perceptional things that you did and shifted that got you here. Because I know one thing that'll be helpful for everyone watching and on
Yes.
the replay who are watching is just like, what are the tools that were like the most fundamental that brought you the biggest shifts?
Okay, I wrote some down because I didn't want to forget. As I was just thinking about this call and like, reflecting on some of the stuff. So I have so many, but I'm just gonna read this quick list, okay? But it was for me, this is my experience with you, Tyler. Learning to change my environment, change my body language, change my words, change my thoughts and my beliefs, change my just state, my emotional state, and all of that changed the experience that I was having.
Mhm.
So that was, I guess, like a key thing that I got from working with you, is you would make these little shifts where, you know, because when I was talking to you, I'd be like hunched over in bed, like, you know, uh, just always like this and scared and curled up and glasses, and you were just kind of like, you can keep them on. You never encourage that resistance where it's like, well, you should feel better, take it off. You're just like, keep them on, cool, or stay in the bed or keep it dark. It was very easy. And then it made that in itself made me feel safe. Like, oh, I can do what I need to support myself. But then you also empowered me where it was like, what would happen if I took off my sunglasses? Would I combust? Would I? And it slowly challenged me to start changing the way I sat, changing the room that I was talking in, things like that. And I noticed slowly, like as I started to make those changes, I was feeling better, having a different experience.
I love
Sorry,
that.
is the baby super like loud
No,
over
no,
you?
you're good.
Okay.
You're good. We hear like the slightest cooing, but it's actually calming and adorable if you ask me. I don't know about them, but I'm like, hmm. Um, so I'll ask you one more question and then I'll leave it for them. And ladies, like I hope for your sake and for Sony's sake and for my entertainment's sake that that you have questions. There's no stupid questions. Everything you've ever asked me, ask her. Let's just put it that way. Sony, the last question I have for you, and then like I'll wrap it up when everyone's done, is one question that I'm asked often is okay, I get that I need to change my state because now I know what that means and I know why and all those things, but how specifically, and I know you've learned it and it's in the program and all that too, but how would you say that you change your state the most effectively? Like, what specific things do you do to change your state?
Honestly, it was easier to do it through because there are different avenues that you can do that. Um, y- and we can do it intellectually, like, understanding how to do that. And, we can do it through our emotions. But for me personally, it helped and it was fastest to do it physically. So, like I said, you had us do a lot of these exercises where you'd be like, squeeze your body and tense up like you're really angry, or and then like release it and like be calm, and just even experiencing that showed me just different states physically and how it parallels you know everything else. Um and so I would practice, like, even when I walked, I was like always hunched over, like Hunchback of Notre Dame, like like an old lady, because I was always dizzy and I was like scared to fall, but I'm like, well, no matter if I did this or stood up straight, I was still dizzy anyway. So I would just like stand up and walk as if I'm not dizzy. I mean, I would acknowledge and respect, the dizziness so I wouldn't like fall, obviously, but I was just like, yeah, like like at least just putting my shoulders back or just straightening my neck, or so changing my physical state, I think is one way that changed how I felt emotionally and physically.
I love that. I want to leave it to everyone else for any questions that you guys might have. So, for the sake of not everybody coming off and like speaking at once, if you could either put your questions in the chat and then I'll unmute you, or if you just want to like raise your virtual hand or something, we can ask all one by one. But I would suggest any questions that you guys have asked me over time, even if you want to hear a different perspective of an answer, I would highly suggest asking it here. So, whoever wants to go ahead. Be my guest.
Hi, Sony.
Hi.
Um, can you hear me good?
Yes,
Oh, good. What's the baby's name? He's so cute.
James.
Aw. What do you, I'm a nurse too, so what do you do in the healthcare field?
I was an OR, I was a scrub nurse. So I worked
Okay.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
So sometimes I feel like with nursing, when you know too much, you
yeah.
start to take on all that and you start
Oh
to
yeah.
become like a hypochondriac,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Okay. Um, I've experienced a lot of the things that you were talking about. So it was kind of like, it was really good to kind of see that. And then when I started seeing Tyler, I was already past the finally getting out of the house and around the block, you know, like
Hmm.
I couldn't walk around, I couldn't go to the stop sign even. And I think this weekend he was off. I'm like, where have you been? I've had all these major gains after he was just talking crap about me. Um, to the point where I couldn't leave the house for almost, it's been a long time now. But for you, like, what was your biggest breakthrough? What was, and now what's your next goal? Like, what do you feel now that what was your hardest thing? What was your biggest, like, horrible phobia or habit that you started to form and gain throughout all this fear and stuff that we just kind of we fed the fears that rolled into everything.
Yeah. Um, well, first off, yes, I think being in the medical field, we're like the worst patients, okay?
Yes,
Because you
we
do know
cannot.
too much. And that's,
Yes,
the saying ignorance is bliss takes on a whole new meaning because
totally.
yeah. Um, so I feel for you. But one of the things that Tyler taught me, even with that, is like, why does that have to be to our detriment? He didn't like actually say that to me. I just in that process, I was like, yeah, why does, because I felt like it was a curse. I was like, oh, I wish I could just unknow everything I know.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
at the same time, it's like I just need to know more and then I'll be safer, which
yeah.
wasn't the case. I actually understood so much and I was still sick. So I knew knowledge wasn't more of what I needed.
No,
Um, and then I felt like it was a curse, but then Tyler really shifted my perspective on just how I frame things. And I was like, why can't this be to my advantage, And
yeah,
to know that I'm blessed to have the knowledge that I have, but not be so scared of what it is that I know. And I think a aha moment through that process was like, just because I know it doesn't mean that it's going to happen. And that's where you have to kind of train your brain because as a nurse, you see the worst, and you see patients totally fine, and then all of a sudden not. And so we feel like that's going to be me. So learning to, differentiate like, okay, just because it happens doesn't mean it will happen to me. But I think my biggest breakthrough and, through this journey is I want to say like, oh, I just got totally better, and I mean, you guys see me, I'm physically just so different. And it's just the byproduct of the work that is done. Okay, I don't want people to work with Tyler or anybody, whether it's a clinician or a therapist or whatever, and think that people are going to just like, cure whatever it is that you might have going on. I think what helped me was when what's her face, Cherokee came on and shared her journey, and she was in the throes of seizure. And but she was out hiking. She's like out with her family and traveling. And I was like, how is she doing that? Like, that's kind of what got me like, okay, it's possible to have a life despite, what we have going on. And so for me, I wish I could say like the biggest breakthrough was like, oh, there was like this miracle cure and I'm just healed. But honestly, the breakthrough is like how my relationship changed with anxiety. Because I also thought working with Tyler, the anxiety coach, I'm just gonna never have anxiety. I'm never gonna feel bad. I'm never gonna have a bad day. And that's not true either. I mean, right? Like even Tyler, like I was like waiting for the day he'll have cop an attitude because I'm gonna be like, see, you're having, a bad whatever. But the thing is, you're human, and as long as we're alive, we're always gonna experience some challenges and hardships and anxiety, and that's great because anxiety tells us something. And so the biggest, sorry, I feel like I was just situated. I feel like the biggest breakthrough is like being aware of how these things serve us, like me learning how the anxiety was serving me in a lot of ways and changing my relationship with anxiety, if that makes any sense. So instead of being so scared of feeling anxious all the time, it's like, what's going on? What is my body trying to tell me? What is going on internally that I need to take care of so that anxiety isn't doing it for me? Don't know if that
What
makes sense.
what what other habits did you have? Like how long did you have bad eating habits? Like did you only eat certain things? How long did you not drive for?
I didn't drive for 6 years. I was literally bedbound. And I was so like, one of the things I was diagnosed with was POTS. And it was so severe that I'd be in bed and just turning my head. I mean, my heart rate was like over 185. It was bad. I was in the ER a lot.
Explain to the group what PATS is because some people
Oh,
have to Google.
POTS, it stands for postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And that is a dysfunction of your nervous system, essentially. And your nervous system controls everything from your breathing, your blood pressure, your heart rate, peeing, pooping, eating. And so everything was affected. I mean, I couldn't, um, metabolically speaking, too, my labs were always out of whack and everything was just a mess. So everything affected my digestive system. I reacted to everything. I ended up also with mast cell activation syndrome. So I started having allergies to things that, I had eaten and was fine with my whole life. So everything was just like chaotic. And it felt so scary. And, we have to address those things. We have to go see the doctor and figure out, right, medically, like how to help yourself. And, but it caps out, like a lot of these conditions that you're seeing actually nowadays after COVID, like long COVID and things like that, Lyme disease, mold toxicity. It's just ongoing. But um, doctors can only do so much. It's kind of like when you're sick with the viral infection, they're just like, stay home, drink fluids and rest. But there are differences. Like I see people who are really sick with flus and whatever, and they're like, I'm gonna get better and it's gonna be cool, and it still sucks. But then there are people who have it and they're just like, but like they ask every day, can I just take antibiotics? Can I just do this? What do I do? What do I do? And they just panic the whole time. So a lot of that, so for me, it's just like, what kind of experience do I want to have? If I'm going to be sick with whatever, do I want to just like coast kind of through it, do what I can, be hopeful that it's going to pass and I'm going to get better, or that I'm doing what I can to help myself and just get through it? Or do I want to suffer on top of suffering? And I was just suffering on top of suffering. But yeah, I haven't, when I met Tyler, didn't drive for like 6 years. Diet wise, I felt like I was eating so clean because I had eliminated so much from my diet. Like I felt like you could probably eat my poop because it was so clean. Like my diet was nothing but organic, whole foods, like all the gut health stuff. The best of the best supplements that you can only get through providers. I saw every integrative, functional, conventional, all kinds of doctors to get help. And, I wanted to stay away from pharmaceuticals, but there were a few medications I needed to take. But, it's like, and it was weird too, because I had this huge mistrust with Western medicine and conventional medicine. But at the same time, it was like I was always acutely sick that I kind of needed their help. So that created a lot of anxiety too. And then through social media, I started finding providers and other people on health journeys, and I would like obsess over them, and um, it was just very extreme. But like I had cut out like dairy, gluten, sugars, processed food, everything, and um, even did medical mediums protocols for a while. Then I hopped off off that train because I found out, maybe it's not ideal. And like, y'all, I celery juiced every day for years. Every day, the 16 ounces of organic celery juice every day. Okay. And I lost weight and, whatever, but I was still really sick. Okay. And I was doing therapies weekly. And my anxiety was so bad that the therapy calls were creating anxiety. And then when I didn't have anxiety, I was anxious about not having anxiety. And then I was anxious about when I was going to feel anxious. Like it was just a hot mess. And my husband had to have, like, I always wore my Apple Watch because I was constantly monitoring all my vitals. I had to know every single second. My cardiologist, everyone's like on my favorites phone list because I was constantly like messaging them, like, what does this rhythm mean? Like, and it's like I knew, but I just needed everyone else to know how bad I was. And like, what are you gonna do? Help me. My husband had to be on call like literally every second while he's at work. In case something happens, he could rush home to get me. If I ever left the house, it was always almost to doctor's appointments. And the whole way we're driving, first of all, it's either two things would happen in the car. I had to be completely covered under a blanket because the sensory input was too much, or I'm peeping through the window looking at all the closest hospitals because I was like, if something happens, like, where would I go? And like, I know all the hospitals. And I'm like, okay, if I'm too far from this one, I would have, so I would like even place like restaurants, not that I could even eat at a restaurant, but I would, calculate everything in my life, I was too sick to cook, but I like, prior to getting sick, let me put this in there too. I was a very like, always worked multiple jobs, provided for my family, very independent, took care of other people. To like I couldn't even shower by myself. My husband had to sit near me because I thought I was gonna pass out in the shower. And I had evidence to back it up because like my whole skin would react from the hot water and my blood pressure would drop to like 80s systolic, right? So like super low. And so I was just always scared. And I had the evidence to prove why I should be scared and the evidence to show me like you are so sick. And and I found all the answers that I could possibly find. I was one of the lucky ones because people, with POTS alone, they don't get diagnosed for years. I got diagnosed right away because I self-diagnosed myself and then I found the right doctor that I knew would know what it is and then he diagnosed me. So, you know, um, but knowing all this stuff didn't help. I was just living in fear all the time. And Tyler is able to put things in a package to show you that in reality, in truth, is that yes, all these things can be happening, but it doesn't mean you have to live in fear. It doesn't mean that you can't live and enjoy your life. And I actually had a call with him one time where I was breaking down crying and I was kind of frustrated with him because I'm like, it's easy. Like in my head, I was thinking, like, it's easy for you to be like, come on, like, just get up and do these things that he has us do because I'm like, you don't have it. Like people, you don't know what it's like. Like I'm like, I almost passed out because I tried to pee, like, and Tyler's just over here like, look at me changing lives. And I'm just like, and I got frustrated, um, but again, he just really was so patient and just created a space for me where I can step into with all my crap and all of my fears. And I think just acknowledge that. I think just allowing me to sit there and be like, yes, I'm so scared. I'm so like, I'm a hot mess and I don't know what to do. And I think allowing that space, first of all, was super monumental. And then through that, holding my hand and showing me, look, I had an uncle and he had cancer and he was never anxious. And I'm like, what? Like, I'd be terrified. And he was just like, yeah, he ended up dying. And I was like, oh my God, this is not going the way that I thought. And he's like, yeah, he ended up dying. But, he was never anxious. And then for some reason, I was like, man, that's actually the ideal life. Like, his uncle died, like living life and, because I realized the reality is we're all going to die. We're all going to die. Nobody leaves this earth alive. And it's like, we don't know when or how we're going to leave. Do I want to leave? Like today, if it was my last day, do I want to be like, what did I do today? Did I just sit in bed and I was scared of what would happen or how horrible I felt? Or do I want to like try to like do something that's fun and exciting and, you know, like live my life? And so when he shared about his uncle, that was another like catalyst for me to be like, okay, if someone has cancer and he can overcome like anxiety, like not have anxiety, that means it's showing me that I don't have to either, you know?
I love that. I love that. I have so many questions for myself from a practitioner point of view, but I'm not going to ask them because it's not relevant to this call. But you just got me curious about a bunch of shat. Um, that was super helpful. Does anyone else have a question or other questions, be it about changing how you feel, or driving, or health stuff, or literally anything? Her birthday, she's here, and while she's here, we might as well use her. That sounds weird, but you know what I mean. I think Janine, I think you would have a question. Yeah.
Yes.
All right, there we go. Good. Thank you for asking.
Sony?
Hi,
Hi. How are you?
I'm good.
So
We
nice to
stayed we stayed in touch on Facebook, so
yeah.
it's nice to see her face.
I can show you the baby because she sleeps on Fabian and the carrier.
Oh,
See her?
so cute. Best.
I wanted to ask you, how did you change your relationship to anxiety? But how do you lost the fear of anxiety? Because I think this is my biggest obstacle in my healing
Yeah.
path because I fear the anxiety so much and then I resist.
Yes. So,
Resistance is so, yeah.
yes, I totally understand. And this is one that I'm going to try to articulate because it's kind of hard because it's a paradox. It's a paradoxical thing. Paradoxical meaning like the thing you think you're supposed to do to make it happen actually isn't, you know? And you know that saying, what we resist persists.
Mm.
So when you're like, oh, I don't want to feel scared, I don't want to feel anxiety, I don't want to, well, we're resisting that so we get more of it.
Mm-hmm.
So the paradox here is like when we stop, when we just say, you know what, I don't just stop trying to feel better. Just stop trying to feel not anxious, you know, just stop, you know? The byproduct of that is you just don't feel anxious because you're not resisting. And I realize, like, if you can follow me here really quickly, is like it's actually the resistance that feels so horrible. We
Mm-hmm.
have anxiety or we experience anxiety because we are actually resisting something, right? So, like, oh, I don't want to feel this test, or I don't want to get like a bad report, or I don't want to feel those symptoms again, or whatever it is. And that resistance to, like, I don't want that, I don't want that. That's actually the negative experience that we're having. But when we just trust ourselves, and this is another layer, this is why there's so many avenues. That's why you have to work with Tyler, and you can't just constantly, you know, talk to people that get better. Just like, what did you do? Like, I think it's why it's so important to work with people like Tyler, because he's going to then help you explore and discover areas where you might have a limiting belief that keeps you in a belief or thought process that makes it hard to, you know, let go, because there's a reason why we're all hanging on to this, why we have these resistance, like, you know what I'm saying? There's some kind of fear, and Tyler's great at being able to identify what that could be. You know, maybe you believe that you're not strong enough to handle something. You know, maybe you believe you're not worthy of, you know, a happy marriage, or, you know, and that's why you know, you're always fighting. Or maybe you believe that um, if you're actually well enough, you might be accomplishing great things and you don't believe that. I don't know, like it's different for everybody, you know, but I think if you know, to answer that question, like, how do I just stop having anxiety? I think shifting that desire of just like trying to stop feeling anxious in it of itself is going to be what makes you not feel anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe what helps is like understanding that I think I wrote this down as an example here. Let me see. Oh, yeah. So here's an example that might be helpful. Okay. exercise he had us do where we have this traumatic event and you put the memory and you close your eyes and you pretend it's on a big movie screen.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's like, okay, now you want to make it black and white. And then you're gonna, change the size and make it really small and make it go backwards and, do it really fast and then put like a funny music. And mine was like the circus music, like dun, 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 dun. Yeah. And I did that. And then the event that used to scare me all the time, I was now able to replay that, or it just didn't affect me the same way. I was able to like laugh. So I realized that it's not the event itself or what's actually happening that is
Mhm.
bad. It's what we think about it. It's what we define it, what we put meaning to it, you know, that makes it so horrible. So you have to look at like, what am I saying? Like, if you get a paper cut, if I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get sepsis and die, or this is horrible, like I can't believe like this thing cut me. And if you're adding to that, like on the table is a paper cut, and you can just be neutral, like, oh, there's a paper cut on my finger. Those are facts, right? There's a paper cut on my finger. But then suddenly if you're like, oh no, what happens if it like if I don't clean it? What if it gets infected? What if it like, now you're adding to that. And that is what Tyler taught me I can control. Like, look at your thoughts, look at what you're adding to it. And so I started to just stop these thoughts, and realize that most of my experiences were so negative because of my thinking and my belief around it.
Mhm.
And then the part of you that wants to keep you safe is going to say, yeah, but Tyler, especially the nurse side, it's like, I have seen infections where it's like a hangnail and the person got sepsis and died, And, but the thing is, it's kind of like everybody poops, right? Everybody poops in this room. So it's like when your stomach is grumbling and you feel those sensations in your body, pretend that's a symptom, right? Where your stomach's kind of crampy and your butthole's like whatever. Okay. And then guess what? You know what to do. You're like, okay, time to go to the bathroom. And then you like poop it out. So trust your body, like remind your brain, be like, you know what? If something is emergent, if something is like very serious, if you have a symptom, trust your body that you will know what to do when that time comes. Because honestly, Janine, like every time I've had a serious medical issue, cardiac, whatever, every time historically, I've always gotten the help that I needed, you know? But also more than 50% of the time where I ended up in the hospital, um, it I didn't really need to be there, right?
Mhm.
But every time something was emergent or very serious, I promise you, I always got the help. I always had the right people around me. And actually, those are the moments that I was actually very calm. Like
Yeah, me
like when
too.
you're pregnant, I don't
Yeah.
know what's your last baby, but for me, this was my first baby, so I didn't know what labor's like. But it's like the anticipation is worse than the labor itself, right? When you're like,
Yeah.
when is the baby gonna come? How's the baby gonna be? How am I gonna? That's worse. But then when it actually happens, you already know what to do.
Yeah.
When having the contract, your mind kind of just becomes still because we're being
Mhm.
present. And so that's what it is. Anxiety is just reminding you, like, oh, you're not being present. You're digging up the past or you're living in the future. And that's okay. You can have those thoughts, but then just be like, what's happening now? Am I like needing to call 911 now? Or am I feeling so sick now? And if you are, you are. And then just be with that and just know that you'll get the help that you need. Or if you're like, I just feel like crap, I need to lay down. Go lay down and just be present with that. And then through that process, you're going to find like, oh, I'm not feeling anxiety about it. I'm not feeling scared about it. I'm able to just go through whatever I need to go through, with that peace. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah.
Did that answer that, Janine?
Yeah, that's really helpful.
I love that. There was Sony, you reminded me of the saying that I read years ago. It was the first time I ever came across any personal development, therapeutic, psychological, anything. It was so cheesy, but it was a humorous way of explaining what you just said about the present. They're
Uh-huh.
like, when you have one foot in the past, one foot in the future, you're pissing on the present
Oh.
because it's right in the middle. And I'm like, that's kind of a fun way to put
Yep.
that. It's true though. Um,
Very true.
Kristen, if you are able to, I would love for you to take advantage of this and ask Sony a question that you might have regarding anything going on with you. I know that a different perspective may be very helpful in anything or everything that we've spoken about. So if you don't even need to put your camera on, but if you want to ask your question, I would highly suggest doing that. Um, and or Karina, but I will shut up so that you guys can do that if you so choose to. Kristen said yes. I need a minute if possible. No worries at all. Karina, would you like to ask Sonia anything here while we have her?
Actually, I think she answered most of my questions that I was writing down. It was like what strategies she used and also how she got past the fear of anxiety.
I love that. Okay, so Sonia, I have a question for you, and I think this will be very helpful for everybody to hear the answer to. I'm curious, how would you personally, how would you differentiate um, changing your relationship with anxiety versus changing your state? And I asked that, I want to clarify the question because I saw some interesting looks on the screen. I want to clarify what I mean and tell you why I'm asking. So whenever people tell me, whether a friend, a client, anybody at all, when people say, Tyler, you have to let people feel what they're feeling or be authentic, or here's another one I get a lot. I just need to change my reaction to anxiety. I hear these things a lot, and I go in the direction of, well, you don't need to change your reaction to anxiety. You need to change what you're focusing on or the meaning you're giving whatever's in front of you, the paper cut, as you mentioned. And when you just change the meaning of the paper cut, you just won't feel anxious. But I did hear you say today, and I have no dog in this fight. I just want to clarify, and I'm curious to hear the distinction for you for the sake of everyone watching this. You mentioned at the very beginning of this, changing your state being one of the most helpful things through your
Hmm.
body, focus, and your language. And you've also mentioned changing your relationship with anxiety. So I'm curious if you want to help us distinguish between those two things.
Okay. My relationship with anxiety has changed because prior I was like wanting just the anxiety to be gone. It's like the horrible ex-boyfriend that you're just like, get out of my life. Maybe that's not a good analogy because once they're, maybe it's done for. But um I just didn't ever want to feel anxiety. I was so scared of feeling anxious that I was anxious about feeling anxious. And now, the relationship I have with anxiety is that, oh, it's not there to harm me. It's not there to like get me. It's just there to give me information. Just like when I'm happy, when I'm enjoying my baby or enjoying some good food, it's like telling me that, oh, I really like this experience. And now, if there are moments of anxiety, it's like, oh, this is just a reminder that my thoughts have, kind of taken me somewhere. And I know now that my thoughts are just thoughts, just like when we're on the phone scrolling. And if there's like a content person I don't like or something that, whatever, I just scroll. Some people like to
Mm,
stop and comment, which is fine too. But um our thoughts are just there. You can give it the attention that you want and stop and comment, or you can just like keep scrolling. And so I've learned to do that with my thoughts and not be so scared of anxiety and just like wish it out of my life. So now my relationship with anxiety is like, okay, I'm going to go to the mall today. And before it'd be like, I can't go to the mall unless I don't feel anxious and I feel great and I feel confident and I feel calm. But now it's like, I want to go to the mall. It's like anxiety, you can come if you want to. And but you're gonna come with me. Like it's almost like I took charge of the anxiety. It's like you're gonna come with me to the mall and you're gonna do what I say and you can be there. And I just don't give it power. And
mm,
so I think the power dynamic definitely changed in my relationship with anxiety. Now, as far as changing my state, that's more like the how to, because we can sit here and talk about how to have, like, everyone's like, if you say what's your ideal, whatever date or ideal husband or ideal wife, and you can talk all the things, but then it's like, well, how do I get that kind of relationship? So for me, changing my state was the the doing it part, like how you actually get that relationship you want.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah. And so one of the things I remember we, I don't know, I don't think it was a one-on-one. I think it was a group call actually. The group calls were always so helpful for me because other people would share and they were able to articulate things that I couldn't. But, and I don't remember the exact example, so I'm just going to use mine. But I was always like really sick in bed, you remember? And I like never left the bed. And sometimes I think you kind of challenged me, like, oh, okay, where are you today? And, and I was like always just in my room in the dark. And then you kind of gave an example, and I'll just apply it to this analogy, but it's like, I really believed like I was too sick and dizzy. I was too weak to get out of bed. And every time I left the bed, my heart rate would go crazy. My blood pressure would drop. I was just too sick. So the bed was my safe place. That was my belief in reality. Okay. But then I was like, oh, wait a minute. If a bad guy came in right now with a gun, I would be up out of that bed so fast and running to the closet. Or if there was a fire, I'd be running out of that bed. And suddenly, I'm not so sick that I can't get up and can't do something, right? And I'm like, wait, what changed? And it was like my belief or my thought or the state, right? Like something was emergent or something was more important than sitting, like taking care of whatever symptoms. And so, even just that was huge for me because kind of like the walking one house versus why can't you just walk the neighborhood, because I noticed another thing. I have a niece that I'm super close to before I had the baby. She used to come up visit a lot, and anytime she was around, I would always be so happy. I'd be like, hi, how are you, and be super smiley and just kind of energetic. And then as soon as she would leave, I'm like, okay, I'm so tired. I gotta go lay down. And then my husband would ask me a question. I'd be like, oh, okay, I don't know. I can't think right now. And I'd be like, just changing how I talk. I would change how I like my body language. And I was like, wait. And I used to always think like, I only feel good when I'm around Layla. I only feel good when I see my mom, or. But I realized through working with Tyler, like I can choose to do that at any time. I don't have to wait to see my niece or have something happening. I can change that at any time. So I kind of always pretended like my niece is around so I could, because I always wanted to, experience joy and be energetic and light. And so that's what I mean by, changing my state and therefore
I
having a positive experience.
I love that so much. And one thing that I love also, how many of you raise your hand if your parents told you something growing up and we're all like, yeah, 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 but then a friend or someone else who you look up to says something, the exact same thing, and you're like, that's the smartest thing ever. How many of you had that? I've had that more times than I can count. And I go back to my parents and I'm like, I learned this thing. They're like, yeah, we told you that forever, dipshit. And I'm like, oh, I heard it from someone else who I actually wanted to hear it from. We're all having this moment here. What I just love, Sony, that you described is if there was a situation in which there was enough leverage, right? A big enough reason,
Yeah.
you, not the environment, you would then be able to change your thoughts, focus, or beliefs and feel as good as you want, be it your niece, be it a fire, be it a bad guy, as you're describing. How many of you, out of curiosity, have remembered me talking about needing a giant reason or like leverage any of that language? Who remembers me talking about that? Right. And so I love that you demonstrated it with that. The second thing is just the fact that like it's like that choice. I think that's awesome. Kristen said she can't put the mic on right now. There's a lot going on, but she did write the question. She said, I have a lot of dips where I do great and then I feel like I slide down. Any advice on how to get out of that or keep going when it feels like you're going backwards? I have my responses, but this is your show, Sony. So if you want to give 2 cents, I would love that.
You might not like my answer because I know I didn't want to hear that when I had the same question. But one of the big things that I learned, April, like again to your question, like what is the big thing that I like took away is identifying the fact that the anxiety is there to meet a need. And to hear that is kind of like a slap in the face it was for me because it's like, are you saying that I'm like liking this because I'm like literally I was in hell, And to sit and like look at how is this meeting my need or serving me, it was really, I mean, I had to do a lot of internal awareness, you know? So if you're stuck in cycles, um, I think you have to, instead of looking for just more strategies and more ways to just get out of it, because you're going to just find yourself right back to square one, I think is really being able to identify what need you're needing met. Once you do that, the anxiety doesn't need to do it for you.
Kristen, does that sound ultra familiar to a conversation we had ultra recently? And I'm not saying that with salt wounds. I'm saying that with like, yeah, sure does. Okay. So one of the things that I value, Sony, thank you so much with having these conversations that I like to call sensei sessions, where someone who's not me teaching the stuff has had such real experiences with it, crossing their bridge from their internal hell to their internal pleasure or heaven, is two things. One, you all get to hear the experience from someone who's gone through what you are truly going through yourself. And maybe you think that Sony's had it worse or Cherokee from before has had it worse. And maybe they have, who knows? It's all relative. But the other thing that's super helpful is Sony is confirming the same things that I've been teaching you guys. And that's not me saying, like, told you so. That's a really good thing because you can take it from her who's experienced it and changed her life with it and continues to, I imagine. And then go listen to the lessons again and go, oh, this is what he's teaching, but that's how she applied it. That makes sense. Maybe I can take what he's teaching and do it the way Sony saw it. Like, I see how this all connects now. And that's the reason I value these sessions so much. Super, super, super helpful. If any of you have another question, feel free to ask. Otherwise, Sony, is there anything that you'd love to leave this group with?
Well, first of all, I just love you guys so much. And, I am just so proud of everyone that's here, because it takes a lot of courage and, we're all growing, all of us are all growing and learning something every day. And that work, that transformation is a journey that doesn't end until, God calls us home. And that's another thing too for me is like my faith, as a Christian, I really had to grow in my faith spiritually because ultimately God has the last say. In April, you might have seen in your work as a nurse that there are patients that literally are supposed to be dead and they miraculously survive. And then there are people that seem they're totally fine and they die. And so for me, I learned very quickly, like, God has the ultimate say and he loves us and he's watching over us. And to have faith in that when things seem really scary or you can't handle it yourself, like you're not alone, and turn to your faith if you believe in God. But to know that everything you need is within you. Like um when I first met Tyler too, I was like expecting him because I didn't know my own power and I was expecting him to do it for me. Like tell me what to do and I'll just do it. Show me the way, like pick up my calls whenever I'm having an episode so that I can get through it and then, but really what he did was like, here's the baton. Like you're in the driver's seat. I was like, no, I don't know. And he just showed me how we all have that power within us. And like we're not something's not wrong with you, you know something's not wrong with you if you're sitting there and you're like why are all these people able to live this life and blah blah. You know what, everybody has different circumstances and it might seem like their life is all put together and whatever, but we all have challenges, and it's just about sometimes having the right tools or the guidance or just insight. And that's the whole point, is as we're learning and living and we figure out what these are so that we can do um we can learn how to like let things go or learn how to find peace. And so that's why I think working with Tyler was very monumental, because again, it's not about having knowledge. I think with Tyler it was so helpful because it wasn't just about like, here, learn this and no more, because I'm sure all of you here know it up here, but it's like, why am I not feeling the change? Why am I not like living it out? And so I guess the last thing I would leave is just if you're still up here intellectualizing everything and you're not just dropping down into your nervous system, into your body, integrating that, right? Trusting yourself, then it's just going to continue. Like Kristen, you're saying the cycle, it's just going to be another, you're going to feel like you're taking 5 steps forward and you feel so great, so hopeful after these calls or whatever. You had a great day. And then maybe something happens and you take like 10 steps back and you're going to be like, oh, this is like horrible. And if you want to stop those cycles, it's really just about, again, what I had mentioned earlier to Janine is um, just stop trying so hard to get better, because that subconsciously also tells you something's wrong with you, that you have to get better. So the more work you try to do and the more you try to figure out, that's subconsciously telling your brain, like, see, you don't know enough, or you're not well enough, or something. So yeah, just try the exercises for fun with Tyler. Allow your brain and body to just kind of go there, and you know, yeah, just stop thinking so much.
I I love that. I'll wrap this up with one thing. And Sony, you triggered this thought in me. Um, Sophia in December brought me to Christmas Eve mass. Um, yeah, yes, Christmas Eve, and the priest said something. I'm not overly religious, so bear with me if I say the incorrect words, but the story will just resonate with everybody, religious or not. Um, he was basically saying, he's like, you're really all gonna have to bear with me. Really gonna have to bear with me. Someone in the biblical story, okay? That's how much I know about this. I apologize. He said a man walked up to this guy and basically said, like, I thought you were supposed to help me, yada yada, all these things. And the man gently and patiently clicked on a flashlight and shone it to the wall. And the man was like what? And the man just looked over at where he was shining the light silently. And when the man looked over, he was shining the light on the light switch on the wall. And then the priest, I believe is what the priest, pastor, the man who's speaking said, oftentimes in life, the people who come to help you, they're not going to click it on for you, but they're going to show you exactly where it is, right? Like, not like, oh, it's in that vicinity, go find it. They're not going to bring your hand to it and click it. Like, it'll be like, there, it's very clear. I'm going to point to exactly where it is, help you get all the boxes out of the way so you can go click it, but it's right there. And I will guide you towards clicking it. And my whole nervous system felt that when he said it. And I was like, if that doesn't describe coaching, then I don't know what would. Like, yes, if your room is a disaster and there's so many things blocking you from even clicking the light switch, let's help you get all the boxes out of the way. But then I'll keep the light switch, like the flashlight, on it just until you walk up there and click it. And I love that. I love the way that you explained that, and it reminded me of that. I thought maybe that little anecdote would help some other people see the light in the darkness as well. But I appreciate you, Sony, so much. The woman, the myth, the legend has spoken. um, no, but I appreciate this immensely, and yes, I'll probably have you come back again very soon. If any of you ever want to reach out to Sony, I know it's totally up to her, but it sounds like she's totally open for you guys to do that. So feel free to find her Facebook, Instagram, wherever that is. I will get her socials and throw them in the group if you want. But otherwise, I hope you have an amazing night, and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everyone. It's going to be the best year.
Yes. I'll chat with you guys soon.
Bye.